baby. You're in the sweet spot, girl. You're in the sweet spot, darling. It's a magical kingdom in a mixed up world. You're in the sweet spot, baby. You're in the sweet spot, girl. You're in the sweet spot, darling. It's a magical kingdom in a mixed up world. You're in the sweet spot, baby. You're in the sweet spot, girl. You're in the sweet spot, darling. It's a magical kingdom in a mixed up world. It's a magical kingdom in a mixed up world. It's a magical kingdom in a mixed up world.
Welcome to the Sweet Spot. My name is Lynn, your host, and Ken's my co-host. Ken, how you doing?
Oh, I'm doing all right, Lynn. I'm just so happy to be here per my work release orders.
That's true. I'm glad that you're released.
It's great. California is wonderful that way.
Oh, in so many ways. So, welcome to episode 293. That's
what?
Right. Yeah.
What did you say?
293.
Oh my gosh!
Can you believe it?
I can't believe it, Lynn. I can't believe that I can't believe it. So anyway.
Well, Ken and I are both former Disneyland Custodial cast members, and we talk about Disneyland. And you can only hear these stories from Ken and I because we experienced it. We went through it all, right?
That's right. We experienced it for sure. But what did we do? What do we do besides a podcast?
We are authors of 2 books, Cleaning the Kingdom, Volume 1 and 2. Yes. And you can get those books on our website, autographed copies of the second book. The first book, I have not seen Ken in a while, so I don't have his autograph on the first copies.
You got to pay the tolls.
I know.
Pay my fee, and I will grant you visitation.
California won't let me in. No.
For good reason. But what is our website, Lynn?
It's www.thesweetspot.com, and you can also there's links there if you want to buy our book through Kindle or Amazon, and we also have audio version of the first book. We're working on the second, but you can do that. We also have T-shirts over there. We have our show notes from the show, so if you want to go back and read the full articles or what Ken's reading. Links to things, you can go over there and look at that, and also we have links to our YouTube channel that we started up, which we're going to continue eventually, and our Patreon. If you want to join our Patreon and help support the show during this time, we would truly appreciate it. Things keep going up, and that would help us out a lot. You can go to Patreon and search The Sweet Spot, and you get 1 bonus episode per month if you give $5 or more a month. Let's see, anything else, Ken?
I think that's it. I'm looking forward to the show.
Yeah.
It's a great show that we've got ahead, and so be sure to listen to everything all the way to the very bitter end.
That's right. We have a guest on tonight, someone that Ken and I both worked with in Custodial. She was a manager, and her name was Charlene Thies. And a lot of people that we worked with know of her and respected her, and we finally had a chance to sit down and talk with her about her time at Disneyland, and we had a lot of fun and really enjoyed it, and I think you will too.
Definitely.
So, yes. So before we get started with all that, we're going to have the Disneyland Resort current events up next. Now we're going to have the current events. Ken, what do you have for us?
Well, Lynn, Disneyland is still closed. So that's it. Good night, everybody. Now, there's actually a little news. There's always something going on, and as the Orange County Register reports by Brady McDonald, Disneyland delays Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway to 2023 as vertical construction begins. So there were a lot of people who were happy to see the vertical construction because they were thinking, well, if it hasn't gone vertical yet, Disney is still going to be able to cancel it, which they might do, to save money. Yeah. But as it says in the article here, Disneyland will delay the debut of the new Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway trackless dark ride until 2023 due to the extended coronavirus closure. Ding, 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 ding. It's that phrase again. As vertical construction begins on the project behind Mickey's Toontown, Disneyland had announced a 2022 opening date for the Runaway Railway back in April of 2019, before the COVID-19 pandemic closed Disney's Anaheim theme parks for more than 5 months and slowed construction on the dark ride project. Yes. So,
have you seen any YouTube footage of this from the one at Disney World?
I have.
Yeah, pretty impressive, but I'm sure it's even better in person.
Well, I'm sure. I mean, you cannot get the full effect of projections and anything unless you're actually there.
Yeah, I think it'll be a good addition to Toontown.
I do too.
I think it'll help save Toontown because I think that Toontown was, at least the way it seemed.
Yeah, before they announced this, I thought, gee, maybe they're going to kind of like expand Star Wars into there. Yeah. Or, who knows? But when they announced this, it's like, well, I guess not. What I think Toontown needs is an ink and paint club.
Yes.
Now, I don't know if you could maybe rebuild like boat storage for Small World and put it above that. I mean, it's just I'm trying to think of space for it. But
I think that's a great idea because that part of the park needs that side of the park needs a reservation.
Yes, like a reservation or indoor restaurant, if they're ever going to allow those ever again.
They will. Yeah.
Now, it says here in the article, by the way, all these articles will be at thesweepspot.com, and you can check out our current events show notes there for all of these. But it says Walt Disney Imagineers and Disneyland President Ken Potrock were on hand at the Runaway Railway Construction Zone on Tuesday, September 1st, when the first vertical beam on the project was lifted into place. Cool. And Ken Potrock said, unfortunately, with the delay till 2023, there'll be several Disneyland presidents changes before it opens up, so I won't be here. No, but the odds that he'll still be president are very small. With the way they rotate through there. Right. So we'll see. By then he might not even be still at the company by then.
You never know.
Yeah, and so laughingplace.com also has a story. So if you can't read it at the register, you can get the details from laughingplace.com. Now, the Register did have a story that said Disneyland sets attraction lineup through 2023 with Spidey, Tiana, and Mickey rides. Now, the headline's a little misleading because Disney hasn't actually announced all the opening dates for everything yet. So a lot of it is speculation. Most of the articles these days are speculation, Could Disney do this? Yeah. What does the opening of Tokyo Disneyland mean for Disneyland? There's all kinds of could it be, or what would it be like, or let's imagine. Let's pretend. Well, anyway, this article says Disneyland and Disney California Adventure have 3 major new attractions tied to Spider-Man, Princess Tiana, and Mickey Mouse that are expected to debut over the next 3 years once the Anaheim theme parks reopen following extended coronavirus closures. Ding, 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 ding. Avengers Campus, Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, and a Princess and the Frog makeover of Splash Mountain have all been announced, making for a full slate of new attractions coming to Disney's California parks in the coming years. But when will they open? And the short answer for the rest of the article is, no one knows for sure.
Gavin knows.
Governor Gavin Newsom. Whether you like it or not, he knows. 2023 being the opening of, Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, unless they delay it again, kind of is what the article is based off of, because they can then, they could do the Splash Mountain overhaul before that, because they're not actually building something new. They're just kind of taking stuff out and installing other stuff. So who knows? We know the Avengers campus is coming, soon.
Within the year, right? Within the next year, I would think.
Whenever, expect it to come not long after the park reopen, whenever that is.
Yeah.
So I don't know, Lynn, because I think there's still going to be deadly viruses out there. So who knows? So the article is a bunch of speculation about that, and you can click through to read that if you'd like.
The analysts know.
The analysts, yes, the analysts that are over on the other side of the country who are not, who probably don't know Disneyland is in California and Walt Disney World is the one in Florida. But here's another article from the Register. Disneyland expands the Marvel superhero stunt show casting call for Avengers Campus. Now, remember, we talked about who they were looking for before. Well, they added Black Widow will join a new Avengers Campus rooftop stunt show featuring Captain America and Black Panther fighting a sword-wielding villain once the new Marvel-themed land debuts after DCA reopens. The Anaheim theme park is looking for a professional stunt performer to play the role of Black Widow in a new Marvel superhero live-action show, according to the Disney Audition website. So, Lynn, do you think, maybe you could do this one?
Maybe I can, but I'm just not good with heights, and this is acrobatic, tumbling, and rappelling. I don't know.
Oh, I'm pretty good at repelling people, but... The Black Widow stunt person role joins previously posted positions for Captain America and Black Panther on the Disney Auditions website. The Black Widow stunt woman will wield a baton and be required to have acrobatic, tumbling, and rappelling skills, just like you said.
Yeah.
Ideal candidates would be highly proficient in hand-to-hand combat and be able to demonstrate a series of physical skills based on the role, according to the audition website. Of course, but here's the height thing coming here. Disney audition website lists a specific height range for Black Widow, 5'4" to 5'8". I'm just a little too tall.
Yeah.
Not the right gender either, but that can change. Unfortunately, for those of you who are listening, if you were thinking about doing this, it says right here that the Disney Auditions website is accepting online submissions for the Marvel performer roles through September 6th. So unless they've extended it, that's done. Now, here is the late-breaking news, and really it's not unexpected for me. Disneyland cancels Candlelight Processional as coronavirus threatens Christmas events. Yeah. The Candlelight Processional will not take place this year at Disneyland, according to Disney officials.
What a shame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Walt Disney World put Epcot's Candlelight Processional on hiatus this year along with Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party, due to the large crowds the events typically attract. So if they were completely unsuccessful, then they would do it. Because, like, if nobody cared, then it wouldn't attract large crowds, right? So the Candlelight Processional at Epcot stretches over a month and dwarfs the massive undertaking put on by Disneyland. So the gist of what's going on is they don't know the specifics about what they can do. They're still, without the state of California being able to tell them exactly what's going to be acceptable and what's not by that time, which is, usually the first weekend of December.
Yeah.
And the planning, I'm sure the planning takes place, months in advance.
Yeah, you could throw something together.
It can, it can be like a flash mob,
Yeah.
So Laughing Place also carries that story too, so that if you want to get the specifics, you can look it up. Again, go to thesweepspot.com. It's in the current events show notes. Now, speaking of things canceled, at mouseplanet.com, I saw a snippet in one of their updates that the Anaheim Resort RV Park near Disneyland announced it will close September 1st, which of course is in the past, after 64 years.
What the world is going on around here?
The park was operating on a limited basis with many amenities closed due to COVID-19. Now, if you're wondering what we're talking about, there used to be multiple RV parks. Disney operated one, I think, for a while, kind of where Mickey and Friends parking structure is now.
Yeah.
But if you want to look it up, it's at 200 West Midway Drive in Anaheim. So I think it's on the other side of the freeway, the other side of the 5 freeway from the resort. But that was an RV place where if you could drive, if you took your RV down from Northern California or from Utah or wherever, maybe you came cross country, that was a place that you could go and be close to Disneyland, and that is closed. So
ridiculous.
That is very, very sad.
Yeah. For 64 years, right?
Yeah, 64 years. I mean, that is what's going to replace it. I mean,
Disneyland's going to buy it.
Well, maybe they will, but and I think there has to be places for RVs. Really, there has to be. Now, so if you need to figure out what you're going to do, if maybe you had planned to take an RV, or maybe you want to stay in a hotel, like a Disney hotel. Or, maybe you don't want to go to Disneyland. Maybe you want to go to Walt Disney World. Or, when the Disney Cruise Line reopens, you can do that. Or Disney's Alani in Hawaii. Or even Adventures by Disney. Any Disney getaway destination vacation, you want to contact concierge.com. concierge.com. Go to concierge.com. Book with them, tell them the Sweep Spot sent you, and you'll get a special gift. All they focus on are Disney vacations. They do the heavy lifting. It doesn't cost you any more to actually to get your vacation through them. And it's like a no-brainer because they're going to handle all of the, they're going to make the reservations. They are up to date on what is happening, what's reopened, what's not, what the changes are. So let them do all the heavy lifting. Call or contact concierge.com and get your next Disney vacation planning underway. All right?
Sounds good. Thanks a lot, Ken.
Hello everyone, this is James Hall with Concierge and welcome to the D180. As always, while Ken and Lynn cover all things Disneyland, in the D180 we take a spin around the rest of the Disney universe, and we do it in 180 seconds. Let's jump right in. Starting in Orlando, Walt Disney World is offering quite the savings, up to $500 at the Disney hotels for any 4-night stay between now and December 25th, 2020. All the hotels are included in this stay, excluding 3-bedroom villas, cabins at Cooper Creek Cabins at Disney's Wilderness Lodge, and bungalows at Disney Polynesian Villas and Bungalows. Also available, residents of Alabama, Georgia, Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Virginia, or West Virginia can save up to 30% off select rooms for most nights between now and December 25th, 2020. Be sure to check out and see which savings works best for you. Act now because space is limited with these deals. In other Disney World news, additional dining options are returning to the Magic Kingdom and Hollywood Studios this fall, along with fun, tasty treats combined with Halloween fun at the parks. In Hollywood Studios, the restaurant Hollywood and Vine has their special event called Minnie's Seasonal Dining, which is set to return on September 25th. Decked out for the Halloween season, you will be able to have a monster feast while being able to wave and snap photos with some of your favorite characters like Minnie, Mickey, and some of their friends. Another restaurant returning is Cinderella's Royal Table at the Magic Kingdom, reopening on September 24th. Along with enjoying fine dishes from roasted chicken and beef tenderloin to Chef's Catch of the Day, Disney princesses will be taking a break from their royal duties to greet guests, welcoming them back to this beautiful one-of-a-kind restaurant. Both returning restaurants are available for dining reservations as of today. Additionally, more snack and quick service locations will also be opening soon or have already opened. Gaston's Tavern at the Magic Kingdom returned last Friday, September 4th, and ABC's Commissary at Hollywood Studios reopens for walk-in quick service for lunch beginning October 4th. Stay tuned as more locations with yummy treats begin to reopen soon. Moving forward, we are going to a different destination than normal, Disney's Vero Beach Resort. While this resort will be closed for refurbishments from September to late November of this year, this resort is available for booking in December 2020 into 2021. Located in Vero Beach, Florida, this hotel has many activities suited for you and your family, which can include crafts, campfire sing-alongs, and kayaking adventures, just to name a few. You may also find your way sliding down a Mickey-shaped pool or enjoying one of the pristine beaches right outside your door. There are, of course, the activities for adults only, with a spa massage or a romantic evening stroll on the beach. And that's 180 seconds. I hope you enjoyed our quick spin around the Disney universe. If you would like to learn more about these Disney adventures or many others, please come on over and visit us on our Facebook pages at both The Sweet Spot and their official travel planners, Concierge. We look forward to planning something special for you and your family. Again, I'm James Hall, and this has been your D180. Back to you, Ken and Lynn.
One of the things that we ask people is, did you grow up around Disneyland? Like, what was your experience before you went to work there?
Well, actually, funny story is I used to live on the corner of State College and Orangewood. So when it was summertime, we used to go out on our walkway and watch Tinkerbell fly, because we could see Tinkerbell fly from our walkway out in our front porch area there. And so I always said to myself, someday I want to work at Disneyland, and it came true.
Oh, man. So
yeah,
how did you end up getting, I mean, you know, where did you apply? Was it over there by Harbor House? I mean, how did you end up getting to work there?
Well, back in that day, right to the left of Harbor House in the old admin building where currently Partners is where the office was to apply for a job, and that's where I went and applied. So I went and filled in my application, and then they said, we'll give you a call back. So that's how it all started with me. And then I got a call back, and then I had to go in for a secondary interview.
And did you have requests?
That was with Dave Granick.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I don't know if you know who Dave was, but Dave was a manager in Custodial at the time.
So was he hiring specifically for Custodial, or did you have?
Yes.
Okay.
It was all Custodial, because back then they kind of asked you what your first preference was, and I wanted to be a sweeper. Well, I found out that you couldn't be a female sweeper, so I actually, then the next best thing was busing. So that's where I started, was in busing.
Okay, so yeah, that was so busing. They had women in busing, but they didn't have women doing sweeping.
No, they only had women doing restrooms.
Right, you had to have restroom matrons, but other than that, wow.
What year was this?
I hired in Christmas of 1976.
Okay.
All right.
During the bicentennial celebration.
Yeah. And the year Space Mountain opened up, because Space Mountain opened up the year I hired in.
Oh, right. That was right after the Christmas season. We get into spring, and then Space Mountain opens up. Yeah, so you were hired as part of the Christmas rush.
Yes. Well, because back in those days, a lot of people don't realize they didn't hire CRs. So I was what they call as a CT. So you had to work 3 peak seasons before you were even considered for casual regular.
Yeah, that was a bit of a filtering process there, People, if people listening don't know what that means, it's, you're not acquiring seniority or anything like that. You're just basically there. It's like, okay, you can work here the holiday season, and we'll see after that. And and then of course maybe spring break or summer, or yeah. Was this?
You had to apply for casual regular after your 3rd peak season. There was no guarantee you would get it because there was only limited positions available.
And do you remember what your early busing assignments were? Like what locations?
Oh yeah, I worked my first summer. I worked at Plaza Gardens with over there, and with all the big bands. So that's what I remember the most. So you had the Count Basie's and really, really top-notch bands that would come in at night. And I worked a mid-shift. I worked 1:30 to 10.
Oh, yeah. That's I guess if you didn't have the seniority, you might end up with a mid-shift. That's
that's what happened, yeah.
Jeez. And wow, so you got to be Plaza Gardens. Now, Custodial Central was like right behind. It was I don't know if it was janitorial still back then, but it was behind.
It was janitorial.
It was behind the plaza there, wasn't it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, right there.
So, see, I always thought that for bussers, it's like, okay, you just never know when a manager is going to come through. So, at Plaza Gardens. So.
Yeah, but believe it or not, busing was very similar to sweeping. You had assigned areas within the location. You just didn't get to roam, the area. They had specific assignments for you to do, so you weren't supposed to go outside of your assignment.
Like that section of tables over there, or?
Like I had what they would call middle, because middle was where all the tables were, and then they had dance floor and pathways, and then they had ice cream. So those were like the different areas that you would get assigned to. So, but I was always assigned to middle with a guy named Ray. He since passed on, but we used to call him Rocket Ray because he moved so fast. And so Rocket Ray and I had the middle area.
And Plaza Gardens was, you had the ice cream and milkshakes, so that could probably get pretty messy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And
it definitely was busy with the big bands at night, in the evening.
Yeah, if somebody likes music, that's like one of the best places to be, is somewhere right over there if you like music. So what did you get moved around for like your next season, or how did that go?
Yeah, you would get moved. I spent 2 summers at Plaza Gardens because I liked it. And then in the off season, you would work all the different locations. Like you could work Coach Terrace, you could work Hungry Bear, Casa Mexicana. We called it Fritos back in those days.
Oh, yeah.
Or the patio. You could work all of those locations, and you would get shifted around quite a bit.
And did you stay in busing and like become a lead, or how did things go from there? Like, did you got? Well, I guess I should ask, when did you get hired in as a regular?
I got hired in at the end of the summer of '77 because I had to work Christmas, Easter, and summer. And after summer is when I got hired as a regular.
All right. Okay. And then you started getting seniority and all that. And did you become a lead soon after that, or did it take a while?
I didn't become a lead until I became a sweeper because there was no attrition back in the day. It would take forever to become a lead in busing. So people just didn't separate. So I stayed. I never made it as a busing lead.
So you transferred to sweeping?
Yeah, I actually had a manager who said, I'll never forget, I worked Space Place one night. It was a party. And he pulled me aside and said I was too fast for busing. And at the time they were thinking of having sweepers. So it took me a while to decide, even though that's what I really wanted. And so then I ended up transferring to sweeping because you lose your seniority because it actually was a different, even though it's the same department, it was a different union. So you lost your seniority and had to start at the bottom all over again.
Yeah, that's the bussers and sweepers. Like when I was there, we shared managers, but the sweepers didn't do busing areas and vice versa. They'd work together on events,
right.
But even though it was all custodial, you had custodial busing, you had custodial sweeping, and of course you had night crew. But
right.
So you were among the first female sweepers then?
Actually, they had the first 6 come in, and I came in after them. So I consider myself like the second phase, because they tried out female. They did a trial with like 6 females to see if they could handle sweeping. And it wasn't so much the sweeping. A lot of people can't relate to this, but they had 8-liner carts.
Yes.
And those were really heavy, whereas now, well, they don't even have them now, but they used to have 6-liner carts. So 8-liners were pretty hefty to push, but, the females showed them that they could do it. And after that, they decided to hire females. So that's where I came in out that second phase.
And where were do you remember some of your first areas for that?
Oh, yeah. My first night was sub-mono, and I'll never forget it because, coming from busing, you have a small area in comparison to a sweeping area. And so, and you're expected to clean every little piece of paper off the ground. So I thought I had to do that when I was sweeping. And, sub-mono was big because you had the submarine queue, the monorail queue, you had the Utopia, you had the train station, and you had the Skyway. So I got blisters on my hands like I have never seen in my life because I was just sweeping so fast to try to get everything up off the ground because I thought it had to be meticulous. So, yeah. So that was my first area. My favorite area was Main Street. I love Main Street. So
really, really.
I love Main Street.
What did you like about Main Street?
Basically, because that's the first area the guests see, and it's the last area the guests see. So, just the atmosphere too. It just. It felt like Old Town to me, and very quaint. And that's why I liked it. I especially liked it at Christmas time. That was my favorite time of year. So
Yeah.
with the tree and the garlands, across the street, and it was just very nostalgic, and I just like that area.
Eventually,
I always
yeah,
like
go
that
ahead,
area.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say I always like that area at night. It's just with all the
Yeah.
lights and closing. Yeah.
That, and you had the entertainment go through, so your day went really fast. It just did.
Oh yeah, if you had the parade and everything, that would definitely break things up. And I mean, now they put decorations all over the park, but back in those days,
Right.
it was pretty much Main Street. That was it for the holiday time or whatever.
Right.
Of course, Main Street also had the horses. That was
Oh yeah.
that was unique.
Yeah.
Something like Center Street was pretty good on hot days because you sweep through the shops, you could cool off a little bit, but
Yeah.
you quickly realize where are the air conditioned spots that there's the opera house, there's the shops. If you're pretty much out of luck if you're on the hub, but
Yeah, the hub was a difficult area. I didn't so much care for the hub. I would take Town Square or Main Street, but most of the time I worked on like 10 to 6 days. And the park was closed on Mondays, Tuesdays back in those days too. So you get a 10 to 6 operation, and you would have an area and a half. So you would have. I worked a lot of town squares and Main Gate back in that time, because it was a 3 to 7 shift. That's all you got was like 4 hours. So, but I loved
Main
it.
Gate was the Main Gate was an entirely different animal because you didn't. This is way before the resort days, so you have the parking lot out there. So if you're Main Gate, you're basically you're at the outpost of civilization. You're out there. There's tram loading. There's the restrooms there. There's the lockers, and you're just kind of out in the outposts of civilization. Yeah.
That was like we used to call it the mall, because it would go all the way down to tram loading. And you'd have to walk way out there, and it was cold, in the wintertime.
Oh, gosh. So now this might be a little sensitive, but you were probably in an hourly, right? Were you still in hourly when the strike came along in '84?
I was on the management team, but in a what they called back then an intern role.
Okay.
So I was not an hourly. I was in a temporary salaried role.
So you were kind of spared the pressure of you're going to strike or
Oh, it was
because
still
you were exempt from that, right?
Yeah, we worked long hours.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's kind of like a turning point, It's just
Yeah, I became a permanent manager right after the strike.
Wow.
Because I was in what they call a TSA role, a temporary supervisor assignment.
And you had let's see, from when you hired in. Okay, Space Mountain opens up, Big Thunder Mountain opens up. On a recent episode, we talked about 1980 being the 25th anniversary year. Then you have New Fantasyland come in '83, and then the strike, right? Yeah.
Yep.
What's up? What's up,
Well,
Lynn?
I meant to ask about working with some of you obviously worked with Chuck, I assume, or when Chuck was there.
Yeah.
And if you had any memories of him.
Oh, I have a lot of fond memories of Chuck.
Yeah.
I mean, Chuck. Some I can share and some I probably can't. But Chuck was Chuck was an amazing man. He really was. And, he expected you to work hard. And I think I learned a lot from Chuck in that respect that, he kind of reminded me of my father in the sense that, when you had an assignment, you did it right and you didn't do it halfway. You always gave it 100%. But Chuck, I remember Chuck so much because I know when I used to work my first 2 summers at Plaza Gardens, he would always come by and, stop and pat you on the back and say, "You're doing a good job, Charlene." And, he was just a real nice man. And then I had a really good opportunity to work with him a lot closer when I worked in the office, because I worked in the office almost 6 years as an hourly, on and off when I was in my sweeping role. And so I got to work really close with him and the other managers, and that's when I got to know him a lot better. So he was, like I said, an amazing man. He ran a tight ship. That's the best way to put it for me.
So you got to do dispatch then, or were you doing something else in the office? Oh, okay.
No, I did dispatch. Yeah.
Wow, dispatch is. I think we said in the book that's like a good dispatch person is like worth their weight in gold. I mean, that's because that's like the central air traffic control of what's going on. You're getting calls from other departments. You're getting people are coming in, checking in. I mean, it's like Grand Central Station.
Oh, it's so different. Dispatch today is so different than dispatch back in the day. I mean, because everything wasn't automated like it is today. Everything was done manually, from time cards to schedules to, roster, everything, it was all done manually. And, having computers today really automated everything. So, I remember my first time in dispatch when you wanted to get a hold of a lead, you had to call the comm center. You couldn't get a hold of them directly, and the comm center would have to beep the beeper because it wasn't two-way communication. They'd have to beep the beeper, and you would just hope and pray that the beeper would call you. Whoever had the beeper on their belt would call you, and you'd have to keep track of all that. That's how you dispatched all your calls. So there were times where you'd call the comm center 3 and 4 times just to get a hold of a beeper because they couldn't hear it or they didn't answer. It could be a number of things. So it was very different. So once we got automated, it really, streamlined our operation quite a bit.
Yeah, I could see that being, different as the years went on. I mean, when I started, we were still using paper time cards. You'd have to physically take them to the office, and we'd physically pick them up at the end of the day and take them to Harbor House and leave them there. So you worked dispatch. You had experience as a busser, and in sweeping, and you got dispatch. I guess it's no surprise that you got into management. Then I mean that's a lot of experience in different parts of the department.
Well, actually, how I became a manager, I'll tell you how it worked. I was in dispatch one day, and I was going to school at the time. I was going to Cal State Fullerton. I was a business major, and one of the managers found out that that's what I was doing, and pulled me aside and asked me if I would be interested in management, because at the time I had no interest in being in a management position because I was a fairly quiet person. I pretty much kept to myself, and I just didn't see myself in a managerial role. So when I actually was first hired in as a manager, I basically was doing budgets with Dave Granick, and really enjoyed that because that was right up my line of work. So, but then I had to become a stage manager, which was an interesting transition because I'm not real good at telling people what I need them to do. I just
really
never was.
Really?
No, really.
You got
Really.
over that. You totally got over that.
Believe it
Well,
or
because
not, I'm not.
you
I'm
were known.
I'm very shy.
You were known as being very strict, which I don't think is a bad thing. I mean, I think I think in a department like custodial, you need a mix of managers, and you were known as very strict, but in a hey, we need to keep this top quality sort of way, which I think is good. So I think you got over it somehow.
I must have. I don't know. I mean, it's, a lot of people don't. I don't know. I really wanted to carry on, the heritage and the traditions and what custodial was really all about. That was big for me. When I was on duty, I wanted the park clean, and it's a reflection of who you are as a manager as well. So that was a big thing for me.
Well, I mean, you had, as Lynn pointed out, I mean, you were working there when Chuck was still there, so you had been in touch with the original department management. And then, Chuck retires, and Ray gets him back to do Tokyo.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Ray, did you? By the way, while I'm thinking about it, did you ever take advantage of being able to go visit Walt Disney World or anything like that? I mean, to me, that was a big perk of working there. Was that, hey, I could go vacation at Walt Disney World for relatively cheap, Yeah,
I went to Walt Disney World several times. I enjoyed it. My first time was with my parents. We actually drove across country in a motorhome and stayed at the wilderness. Yeah, it was really a cool trip. And then I went with friends another time, and then I've since been with Tommy. So we've been there about 4 times.
Wow, staying at Fort Wilderness was the first time I went. I stayed at Fort. We didn't drive across country, but we stayed at Fort Wilderness, though. That was great. Wow. Now you mentioned Tommy. This is one of those really cute stories. I think about the department. Now, when did you meet Tommy?
I met Tommy. We shared a desk back in 1988. And I had already been a manager, and he was an intern. And back in those days, your desk you shared with somebody else. So the bullpen was quite crowded. So he got assigned to me and to my desk because he worked graveyard and I worked day swing. So we met and we dated, and we weren't supposed to because you're not supposed to date somebody in your own department. So we kept it very, very quiet, and actually nobody knew we were dating until almost we were engaged. So
oh my gosh.
Yeah, we kept it that quiet. And
that is very hard. That's very hard to keep, because I like to say, and if you had a restroom matron and a restroom guy meeting in the common stock closet at the Skyway restroom, if they shared a kiss, somebody over in Critter Country would know about it within 5 minutes. Yep. So you were able to keep it quiet, huh? That's amazing.
Oh yeah, I kept my engagement quiet for 2 weeks. And I was wearing my ring, but I was very careful. And actually, one of the sweepers, who was known at the time to be very vocal, saw me in Critter Country Closet, and I accidentally took my hand out of my pocket. And she says, "What is that on your finger?" And I said, I said her name, and I said, "You better not tell anybody." And I go, "I know you will." And she didn't. She kept it quiet. And Jim Mertz actually saw my ring on New Year's Eve. And called me in and said, "So, when are you going to tell us you were going to get married?" And that's when it kind of, yeah. So we ended up getting married in 1989, September of 89.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And in fact, it's, there's a lot of funny stories too with that. I'll just share one if you don't mind. But
Go ahead.
a lot of people didn't even know we were married. Because when we were at work, we kept it very professional, and people would look at Tommy and say, "She's your wife," and they would find out from other people because we kept it very professional that way, and even to this day, some people find out and they go, "You two are married?" So it's funny. I laugh about it because, you can't call your spouse, "Hey, honey," at work. You got to call him Tommy or Tom, So you keep it very, I wouldn't even go in and really visit or say too much while we were working because I wanted to keep it that low key. So, and that was one of my reasons too for leaving Disneyland is I wanted to get that separation when Disney's California Adventure came along. Well, not only that, that was one of many reasons, but the big reason is I wanted a new challenge, but I did want to get away from Disneyland because of that. So we would be in different parks.
Yeah, because for the longest time there, okay, he's working the graveyard shift, the third shift, overnights, and you're pretty much. Did you? I forget. Did you stick with the swing shift, or day manager? Some of the day managers would, and the same thing with the hourlies too. If you get bounced around from opening to closing and closing to opening, and that can really throw you off, But so you would do.
I was fortunate. I got to stay on all nights, and that's what I liked because most people didn't want to work night shifts. So I was very fortunate. I loved nights.
And so you would be finishing up, and he'd be coming to work.
Right.
Wow. Yeah,
it was hard.
if people, you had mentioned the workspaces. I think they became more common in corporate America. These shared desks and stuff like this. It might be pulling back now in the age of physical distancing,
yes.
but the way it was with Disney is you were jammed in, like every nook and cranny was full, so you were sharing space and you were jammed in there, and that was
It was tight quarters.
I guess in a department like custodial or any operations department, they kind of want you out and about and not, you come back to your desk to do paperwork or whatever, but you've got to be out and checking things out in person.
Yeah, you do. You spend about, I always like to say I would spend 90% of my time out in the field and 10% in the office. But, sometimes there's things that got in your way and that would not work out so well, depending on what kind of issues you were having. You could get stuck in the office for 4 hours at a time sometimes, not because you wanted to. It's just, it was the nature of the day.
Now I'm trying to think of some. There were certain events that happened over the years. One that comes to mind is 1994 Halloween. There was a special promotion, and I don't know if you were there that day. The promotion had been people. It was Rick D's Kiss FM promotion. People can come into the park early entry in costume. The idea was that they could come in for free in costume, and then they could take their costumes off, and it'd be a normal day after that. But apparently, the promotion was way too eagerly received, and the place got flooded with people, and not necessarily the most well-behaved people. Did you happen to be there that day?
I was not there that day.
Yay! Somebody who lucked out. Oh my gosh!
I did not get to work that day.
Did you? Various things opened like Toontown and Indiana Jones, and now were you involved in any of the openings of that sort of thing? Any kind of special events that stick out in your mind?
Not Not really, I mean, I remember certain things opening up, but I wasn't like in charge of anything, You'd have, of course, like, just, I would say not really. I mean,
yeah.
I really wasn't. I mean, yeah, I would partake in them, but I wasn't in charge of them.
Yeah.
No.
Because I mean, there were times that we would get some sort of special assignment, like we're gonna send people up to help out with El Capitan or the Rose Parade or some special event on property. There's special events on property too that are, like they once built a swimming pool on Main Street, and Lynn remembers that. Lynn was there that day, where Phelps, who was an Olympic swimmer, got to swim right there on Main Street.
Yeah.
I mean, it seemed like Custodial would be, there would be special things that came up, and Custodial just had to figure out how to handle them because they were kind of out of the ordinary,
Well, if you're talking off property, yes, I was. And that was one of my, I did the premiere of Pocahontas in
that's
Park.
right. That's right. I was
so that was one of the events I was in charge of with Bob Rambo. And I remember Ray saying to me, because I had to do all the supplies because they trucked all of our supplies over there that we needed. So my main thing was I had to be in charge of all the supplies for restrooms over there, for any type of thing that we needed. And I remember Ray saying to me, don't come back if you don't have enough toilet paper. And to try to figure out how much toilet paper we were going to need for the crowd that we were going to have was kind of interesting. So, I did that event. So I spent 2 weeks in New York, and it was amazing. It was probably one of the highlights of my career.
That's a huge event in New York Central Park, where the Pocahontas premiere. Wow.
Yeah, Harry went over with us, and it was really. I've never worked so hard. I will honestly say, I actually in those 2 weeks, I lost 15 pounds. That's how hard we worked. So, we were just working night and day, and the joke was always Custodial is always first on site and last on site, and it was true. We would work till all into the evening, and everybody else had already gone home. So that was really an event that I'll never forget, ever. So
it's kind of, I mean, when you think about it, for the company to send people out there instead of just figuring, okay, well, we'll hire contractors locally, I mean, that must have been, that's kind of a vote of confidence in what Custodial could bring, to actually go through the trouble of taking people out there, across the country. So.
It was amazing. I remember standing on the Great Lawn the night after the event got over, and I've never seen so much trash in my entire life. And it was like, being at a concert, and all of a sudden everybody's there and they're gone, and you just see like a sea of trash. And I thank my lucky stars that I thought of ordering rakes before we left. Because everybody's like, oh, pan and brooms. You think you're going to use pan and brooms. Well, you're on the Great Lawn, for heaven's sakes. How are you going to pan and broom? And so I had ordered rakes for the entire crew, and I have never raked so hard in my entire life. And, we had to make it look totally clean again, and we spent all day, and we never worked so hard. I mean, there was so much trash. We didn't have blowers.
Yeah.
Everything was done by hand picking or rakes, and it was a chore, but it was well worth it. I have very fond memories of that. So,
wow,
that was my big event.
When did you go to California Adventure? Was that at the opening or was that later?
No, I was on site pre-opening. So I was on site, I want to say 6 months before we opened.
Okay.
Yeah, we went on site because there was still dirt when we were over there, and we were like, they called us Tiger Teams. So, we had the Tiger Teams going, and then we were trying to figure out our stock closets and the area lockers and that type of thing. So each of us that went over there was assigned to something. So I had restrooms back then, so I was doing a lot of the restroom stock closets.
I'm glad they asked your opinion, Custodial's opinion on a lot of the construction, the way they set up the closets, because I know that sometimes they just do it the way they feel it is, and then you get in there and you're like, wait, this doesn't work.
Well, Mike Sweeney was very integral in that. He did all of that. I just was setting up, like how the stock was going to go in the closets. Mike, if it wasn't for Mike, I'll tell you, we wouldn't have had the stock closets that we had over in California Adventure, because, he knew that was one thing that he didn't want to, he didn't want really tiny stock closets like we had at Disneyland, because, you've got to be able to prepare for the crowd. And we had we had to have a few over at DCA that aren't very good, but, when you look at a blueprint, you can't tell if there's going to be a water heater or, a slop sink here, where that's going to be, but you just don't know where all the pipes are going to be. So there were a few surprises, but Mike did an amazing job to make sure that we had adequate storage for everything.
Yeah, that's, because Disneyland, of course, you kind of had to work with the space you had already, and then California Adventure was, ground up. It was new. That was entirely different situation. That's so you went over there with the original team. That's
right.
And so how did that end up feeling different than Disneyland? I mean, it was, I guess it was initially it was people who chose to be there, chose
right,
because they could either stayed at Disneyland or gone over there,
Right, and they had the opportunity, even after they were over there, they could return back to Disneyland, which many of them did. So it was a choice for the hourlies. For the management team, no, once you were there, you were there. You didn't have the opportunity to go back once you were moved back.
Right.
So, but the hourlies, I forget how much time they had to where they could go back. Because I remember several of them opening up the park because they wanted to do that, but then they went back to Disneyland.
Huh.
So,
yeah. And you stayed in Custodial the whole time.
My entire time, yes.
Yeah,
I was very lucky.
You didn't get. Well,
I was very lucky.
I think Custodial was fortunate in that regard too. It was always good to have people who had been in those hourly positions, not just for a couple of weeks, but had done it for day after day for months and years, and then it's like, okay, this manager is somebody who understands what we're doing here.
I mean that was something I prided myself in Custodial. I was never ashamed to say, because we were called janitors back in the day, and that was a little bit more of a harsher term than a custodian is. And when people would ask you, oh, what do you do? And you would say, oh, I'm in custodial or I'm in janitorial, they'd go, oh, that didn't bother me, because to some people it bothered them. But to me, I was proud to be in custodial or janitorial, because you know what? We're the sole reason why, people come back, because they wanted a clean park, and so that's the reason I wasn't ashamed of it. I really wasn't. I was proud of it. Then you get those people that would say, oh, the park is always so clean. That makes you feel good.
Yes.
It really does.
Yeah. Sometimes I would hear that, doing what we did, we were trained to spot what was wrong, and so we're sitting there thinking, man, this place is a mess. But every once in a while, in the middle of all that, the guests would come over and go, this place is so clean. And you're thinking, okay, I'm seeing the stuff that's, I'm trained to see what needs to be cleaned up. But as for, the guests, to them, it's like, okay, this is a clean park. And so that was always good when they did that. They would come up and thank us or whatever. And yeah, that's certainly different than, oh, you work at Disneyland? What do you do? The excited questioning, and then you say, oh, I'm in custodial, and they'd be like, oh.
Yep.
It's like, no, you don't understand. You're probably thinking, did you work Pirates of the Caribbean? And it's like, if I was working Pirates of the Caribbean, I'd have to stand in one place and, either press a button or I'd have to ask somebody how many in their party or whatever. But in custodial, I got to work everywhere. I got to walk around. I got to move around. I had nobody accusing me of shortchanging them.
Right.
or nobody saying, my kid should be tall enough to ride that ride. Didn't have to deal with any of that.
Nope. And a lot of people would say, "Oh, do you get to move on to attractions after a while?" That's what they would think. Like,
I've had that too. Yeah.
Why would I want to do that? Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I enjoyed that freedom of being able to be out in the open and sweeping in an area and not being in one place, standing. It just, that was the beauty of the job, I thought,
We asked about Chuck Boyajian earlier. Any memories of anything you want to share when it comes to anyone else in management, like Ray Sedejas or even people?
Oh, Ray is one of the people I don't know. I totally respect Ray because, Ray grew up with Chuck, obviously, and he was very close to Chuck. And Ray really carried on Chuck's legacy in my mind to a T. And I respect Ray for that. He did it in his own way, which was great, but Ray and I are still very close friends. And one of our sayings was always, I remember him always saying, we're family, we're not friends. And you truly are. You're really a family because when you think about it, you're with more of your leadership team than you are with your family. You spend more working out, hours with them than you do your own family. But we truly were. We were a family. We did things outside of just working too. So we still do. And Ray is, he was a huge influence on who I was as a manager. He really was.
Good. We think pretty highly of him here on the show.
Yeah.
Did you have any stories or memories of park management like Dick Nunes or Ron Dominguez or any of those people?
Ron and Dick, yeah. You would see them walking the park every now and then. I saw them a lot during our labor dispute. Roy O'Leary was another one who I really, especially in my sweeping years, Roy would always say hello and thank you for doing a great job. I don't know if you guys knew Roy O'Leary. Dave O'Mell was the same way, So, I have fond memories of those individuals, because they're the ones who would stop and say hello,
Mm-hmm.
I have some not so fond memories that I won't share, but those are the ones that I respect, because they did. They would say hello and respect you for the job that you did, So, because I don't know how you guys felt, but when I was in custodial, I always felt like we were looked down upon by a lot of different members of management from other areas. When they needed something, boy, they would be right there to ask you. But otherwise, sometimes you would say hi and you wouldn't get a hi back. It was like you were.
Yeah.
I'm just being very candid, you know. So to me, when you would get that respect from an individual like a Rory or Larry or a Dave O'Malley, it was very, truthful as to who they were as a person.
And it's not like you were easy to miss. For the listeners who don't know, Charlene's a pretty tall woman. Yeah. So they definitely would see you.
Yeah.
I feel like I had that same situation. Something similar was, Matt we met was one in my era that was always coming up and talking, see me doing opening procedures. So yeah, I can understand.
Yeah,
Matt was very, very hands-on too. Yep. So those are the people. I mean, that you really would take the time out, and it was nice to carry on a conversation because they were almost like at your level. They didn't think of you as being anything different. They to me that was important. So
yeah. I found we were more likely if it was somebody who was like in operations, somebody who relied on it, like, say Jungle Cruise needs to call us over to clean out a boat. They were very appreciative of us. I found that it was more if it was somebody who didn't work in the park regularly, like there was some sort of special event and this person would normally work in Burbank or normally work, in the administration building or later on at the TDA building. They were more likely to be the ones who just were kind of like, I had a run-in during one party, with that. And it's just like, I'm just trying to keep the trash cans from overflowing during your party. I'm really sorry,
Yeah.
And, so the ones who actually worked around us all the time were, I think, were more likely to respect custodial because they knew that if we weren't there, then their boat was going to be full of all kinds of stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
let's see. So you were you probably worked a lot of New Year's Eve shifts, right?
Oh, yeah. So, New Year's Eve, yes.
Because you were doing the swing shift. Were you there 1999 to 2000? That would have been what your last. No, that would have been like one of the last ones on the Disneyland side. I know Lynn was working that night. I worked an opening shift, thankfully, and I got out of there. But those were. I mean, New Year's Eve was crazy. I mean, that was just one of those nights. Yeah, you were gonna come there to watch the fireworks and count down, and that was from the guest perspective, you were because everything was going to be extremely crowded. So, yeah.
I always seemed to find myself on New Year's Eve on the hub, totally trapped with nowhere else to go, but somehow our crews did an amazing job. I mean, you would look at how trashed it was because, again, it was like people were in there like sardines. And then all of a sudden, as things phased out, trash was everywhere. But it magically got cleaned up. I mean, we used to scoop it up with liners and throw bags in the flower beds until we could find an opening to where we could get a cart in and get backstage. And so, New Year's Eves were, I enjoyed New Year's Eves. I liked them, for that reason. It was kind of a sense of excitement.
I remember that night I was Adventureland restroom and I had Tiki Room. And just to get from Adventureland to Tiki Room, it took me like 20 minutes just to walk that.
You were lucky you got through.
I know.
That was the challenge of New Year's Eve. They were crazy.
Yeah.
So,
Now, did you work Elizabeth Taylor's birthday party? That would have been like early 90s.
Yes, I did. I love that event. That was amazing. You had so many stars in the park, and it was a very elegant night. We had to dress up, so it was a very elegant night, but it was a beautiful event. It really was. I remember watching the entertainment in front of the castle. It was probably one of the, I'd say, more elegant parties they had, because everything was just so, and we weren't allowed to, it was tough because you saw so many stars, but you weren't allowed to say hi or have any conversation with them. So I had a couple moments with a couple stars, so it was kind of fun.
Oh, did you want to tell us about those?
Well, one of them was Tom Selleck. Okay.
Oh wow.
Yeah. It was interesting because I'll never forget. I was in Fantasyland, and I always was a fan of Tom Selleck. I don't know why. I just was. I liked him as an actor.
He was a good-looking guy. That's why.
Yeah, that's probably why. And I always thought of him in one way, And so when I actually got to see him, I happened to be walking on the, I'm going to say it was the east side of the carousel at the time, and they had everything so fancy. Well, I was stuck because he was coming straight at me, and how could you not look at Tom Selleck, And so I had my little smiling moment, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to take a second look, and I had about 3-inch heels on that night, and I'm tall, so I was about 6'5" with my heels on.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, because we had to wear at least 1-inch heels. Well, to be dressy that night, I had to wear my high heels. So when I passed him, I was taller than him, and for obvious reasons. And so I smiled at him. He smiled back, and I was like, oh, And so I thought, I'm going to take another look. So I turned around, and he took another look at the same time. So we both just kind of chuckled at each other. It was kind of funny, So I remember that moment very, very well. So, yeah. And then I had a run-in, not actually a run-in, but I almost ran into Richard Gere because I was coming out of the Princess restroom, and he was coming out of the Prince. And you know how those exits were at those, and back in that time.
Yeah.
They were side by side, and so I happened to be turning the corner and almost bumped right into him. I thought, oh my gosh, really? So. But I enjoyed that evening. It was just very nicely done, and very, like I said, elegant. It just really was. So, nothing like you've ever seen before, because there was just tons of stars in there. I felt honored to be able to work that night. So.
Really, really tight security too, because they were trying to and they did keep the paparazzi out,
Yes, they did. Yeah. Yes, they did.
Wow.
So, yeah, and we were, we had to be very careful. We were not supposed to be making a lot of noise and that kind of thing. So it was very, the restrooms were all done up real nice with, bouquets in them of flowers, and we had people handing out cloth towels, not the paper towels. So, to dry your hands. That's how different it was. It wasn't, somebody was like, they would be in a hotel, a really high-class hotel. They had the nice soaps, and that kind of thing. And then Liz Taylor's dressing room, oh my gosh, we had to have a whole different menagerie in there, and that was really tight. Only certain people could go in there for obvious reasons. So, but we had to make sure that it was up to par. So, yeah, it was a fun night. Stressful night, though.
So legendary party. What did you ever graduate from Cal State Fullerton?
I did not. I actually quit when I was a senior, unfortunately.
Well, I think things worked out for you anyway. I asked because I went to Cal State Fullerton, so I like to joke that's not a real school, but I went there. But but see, I mean, it's an example of somebody who goes to work at Disneyland, and even if they didn't get a degree, you could still have this wonderful career. And Disneyland is a place where, at the time, people could matriculate up and get into management and have these experiences like being sent to New York and Did you do any of the other premieres? I know there was one in New Orleans and all that. I mean, did you?
No, I didn't get to do any other premieres, just that one.
Central Park was the biggest one. That was by far. I mean, yeah. So
they used to like to try to rotate people. They didn't want to pick the same people to do. They wanted to give everybody an opportunity to do it. In fact, I almost didn't do. I don't even know if I should tell this story. I almost didn't do Central Park because of an upper management person that was going to be there, who I had a run-in in the park with. And I said to myself, no, I'm going to do it because I know we can do it. And it ended up working to my advantage because after that we ended up kind of resolving everything, and he got a whole different perspective of who Charlene was, and how I was as a worker. So it ended up being a good experience because of that. So, yeah, it was. So I was glad I ended up going. I really was.
I'm glad you got to do that. So you were there through a lot of, I mean, in the early 90s, early to mid 90s, the original park management retired. Jack Lindquist retires, and then we get, Paul Pressler and Cynthia Harris and a bunch of different people.
Yeah.
And then, and we always like to finish, Lynn and I like to finish that up with the happy. And then Matt Ouimet came along and, to get the park ready for the 50th anniversary, and because it changed a lot of things, I think, when, with some of the management changes. And, yeah, so I don't know. I mean, if you want to say your piece, you can say it now.
Well, no, I'm good, I think.
Okay.
Good.
All right.
I did want to ask about, we've asked John, we've asked other, pretty much everyone that was there during this time, but do you remember 9/11 that morning, and were you supposed to be working that morning, or?
Actually, 9/11, I was off that day, and I was actually in Bullhead, and we were, because that was around our anniversary. So we were actually taking a boat trip, a jet boat ride down the Colorado River that day. So I was not working that day.
And you weren't scheduled to fly that day either.
No.
Yeah.
We had driven, and it was still a very eerie, because I'll never forget, we woke up and we turned on the TV and we were in disbelief. And, and being in a hotel, that was a high rise, I thought, oh no, we're a target too. And so it was a very eerie feeling. And we called the jet boat tour, the people that we had booked with, and they said, oh no, we're still going. And we didn't know if we really wanted to go, because it was like everything was silenced.
Yeah.
It was just totally different, So, and I'm sure it was the same at work, but I was fortunate that I wasn't at work because I probably would have been petrified, being an icon. And after that, I looked at work totally different. I just did, because being the icon that we were, you went to work and looked at things differently. I did. I mean, I didn't pick up things like I would normally pick up things. I had that fear, So, yeah.
That changed a lot of stuff. And we actually had one of our, I'm blanking on his name, but we actually had one of our fellow hourlies was over at Tokyo Disneyland. And, he was supposed to fly home. He was supposed to fly home, and he got stranded in Tokyo for a few more, and until he resumed flights. But
oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Jeff, I know Jeff was over there. I'm trying to think of which hourly it was. Oh.
I don't. Yeah, I don't know why I'm blanking on his name. He ended up leaving. Last time I saw him, he was working the M&M store in Las Vegas.
Oh man, I have his face in my. Yeah, you would know him. I can't think of his name.
Yeah, you would know. He got stuck in the New Orleans stock closet one day for a couple of hours.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Huh. Why? I should remember who went, and I don't know who was there.
He just went. He went as a visit, like a vacation, and then he got stuck over there. So that's why it wasn't like official. It wasn't like an official thing.
Okay. I thought he was over there in an hourly role. Okay.
No. He went on vacation, and then. Oh my goodness.
Wow. I can't imagine. Wow.
Well, I don't. This is you don't have to talk about this if you don't want to. This is always the worst one. I was off that day. Because Christmas Eve was the easiest day to get off in those 2 weeks because it used to be a shorter day. But the 1998 Christmas Eve Columbia accident. I understand you were.
Wow.
You were on.
I was.
You okay? Because I know Ray ended up being duty. Sorry, go ahead.
He came in as the duty manager that night, and I was custodial one that day, and I'll never forget reporting over there, and it was unlike anything that I'd ever seen, and did not ever want to see again, and it actually ruined my Christmas Eve because. Of course, I was, Tommy was off, and he was waiting for me behind Fantasyland because we were on our way to our Christmas Eve celebration, and I got hung up, obviously talking with certain individuals about what we had done from our end, and never being trained in what we saw and what we had to do was very, very difficult. So. It was a difficult thing. I mean, I know when I arrived, I looked at the person in charge because back then, there wasn't a duty manager on yet. So there was somebody acting in that role, and I looked at him and I said, we shouldn't, this is a crime scene, is what I said. And it was horrific. That's all I can say. It was like literally being at a crime scene. But I remember poor Tommy, he had picked something up for me to eat, and I couldn't even eat because it was just of what I had seen. And it was tough. It was probably one of the toughest days in my career there. And, it didn't haunt me like it haunted other people because I had a strong will on me. But still, I remember telling my hourly cast members, if you can't, be here to help clean this up, I don't want you here. Because I respected that. Not everybody can deal with that kind of a cleanup. And I had a couple that left, and I was glad, because that's not for everybody. It's like, that's why some people can be a policeman or a fireman, but others can't. It's the same situation, and you have to respect that by what you saw. And it was literally like, the best way I can describe it is like a crime scene. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the toughest thing in my career.
I mean, it's a question I hate to ask, but I think it's important that we don't forget what happened, because that's why you keep quality up, and that's why you have redundancies, and you take those extra safety steps and all these other things, because if you have a big failure of all it takes is a bunch of, if everything fails in alignment, then terrible stuff happens. So you need to have these stopgap measures to and people don't get that. They think, why is it so complicated and so difficult running a theme park? And it's like, well, because, you want to make sure it's going to be safe and clean. And, it takes a lot of extra what look like extra steps, And,
well,
yeah. So.
Yeah, and and what came from that is, changing procedures that needed to be changed, and not having custodial responsible for, some of what we had done, and it changed all that, which was good. I felt pretty good, because I remember when I got on scene and there were still a bunch of guests still in the holding area of the Columbia area. You know how you used to go in those gates, the turnstile, and you go in the gates there? And there were still a ton of people just sitting there watching the whole thing that had unfolded, but the aftermath of it. And I looked at the guy, this is where it came out of me, and I looked at the guy in charge and I said, can't we move these guests to another area where they're not having to see all this? And, of course they were witnesses, but move them somewhere else. And so finally they took them out single file and moved them. But had I not said anything, they probably would have still been sitting there. And I thought, they don't need to be seeing this. It's just not something you want somebody to see, And,
yes.
But, it definitely changed how we did our procedures afterwards. And I was thankful for that, because, I don't think any custodial person should have to go through that. I really don't. It's something for a different agency to do, in my eyes. It was. I remember being asked. Yeah, I remember being asked that day, hurry up, you guys got to get this cleaned up. And I'm like, I'm not hurrying. We're dealing with something that we've never dealt with before,
Yeah.
A massive amount of blood and a lot of other things, So it was difficult. Very difficult.
So you had, then you went to California Adventure, so you weren't there for the Thunder Mountain thing in 2003. And that, to me, that was, it's like, okay, something really, really needs to change here. And then park management changed, and there hasn't been anything like those two things since, because it's just like, no, we're going to do what it takes to make sure that this kind of thing doesn't happen again, So fortunately now, let's see, 2003, now it's been 17 years since the second thing. So it's, and nothing like that has really happened again. So that's really good. You talk about, I mean, the park had been open in 1998, the park had been open over 40 years. And that was the first time anything really like that had happened. I mean, there had been accidents before, but those, those were often things that, right. People had kind of, that was kind of people doing things they shouldn't have been doing or whatever, but, right. This was just guests minding their own business. I don't want to end on that.
I have a question. That's a good one.
What?
So one thing I remember about you is that
go ahead, Lynn.
I don't know how many years you did it, and that's why I wanted to ask you. You participated in the Candlelight Processional. Is that right?
I did that because the only reason I did that, I was asked to do that because I was a Spirit Award winner.
Oh, really? Okay.
So they asked everybody who won a Spirit Award if they would want to participate, and so that's how come I ended up participating in that.
Was that the year that they did it that one year in Fantasyland Theater.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was the first year they did it in the Fantasyland Theater. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was prayed that night. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how I got involved in that. I'm not a singer, but
okay. I didn't know.
Yeah. So I was honored to be able. I always loved Candlelight. That was another one of my. I loved them when they were on Main Street. I was always like there for the cleanups on those, and Christmas is one of my favorite times of year. So I always used to love the guest speakers. That would do the candlelight process. So that's why I participated.
Okay,
in that.
I'd always been wanting to ask you that. I didn't know if that was just something you did every year, and at the time I thought, I guess she's a singer. I didn't know. Yeah, that's good.
No, I wasn't. That's why I did it.
I'm glad you got
and congratulations on the Spirit Award, by the way. That's
thank you.
That, for listeners who don't know, that was kind of like our Oscars or whatever. You would nominate your coworkers to get a Spirit Award, and you would explain why and all this sort of thing. And then there was a ceremony, and it was a big deal. And I think they've kind of merged it with company-wide programs now. I think they call it something else. I forget what it's called.
Well, now they have the Walt Disney Legacy Award.
Okay, Walt Disney Legacy. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I actually was a recipient of that as well.
Really?
I have no idea. Yeah, I have no idea. The first year it came out in 2011, I was a recipient, and I had no idea because they don't tell you who nominated you. It could be one person, it could be two, and they just read to you what. That was a big deal because it was the big year. They give you this whole. They give you a really nice pin, like a service pin, and they have a dinner for you. It was amazing.
Yeah, how was that when you, in both cases, when you found out? How was that? I mean, that must have been a good feeling.
It's a good feeling, but it's shocking because I didn't think people thought of me as that kind of a person. I always thought, because I always had this name, BTMWS, which was Big Tall Mean Woman Supervisor. I don't know if you guys know that, but
I don't think so.
Yeah,
I never heard that.
You never heard that? Yeah, my initials were BTMWS, so I always thought of myself as that until later on when I realized that it was more of a respect thing than anything. But it's just because I had really high expectations. So when I got that, the feeling was like, wow. It blew me away. It made me feel like, all my hard work wasn't for nothing, really. It actually was an honor for me to receive that.
You were recognized by the people that worked around you. Yeah.
Yeah, that was very much an honor.
Now, when did you leave? Well, I guess I should, before that, I should say, is there anything else from your time there that you want to mention or talk about?
Other than just I feel very fortunate to have worked for a company for the amount of years that I did, and I really do. I don't ever look back, and am proud of what I was part of, and if I had to do it all over again, I would. And I think working with the great people, just not just managers, but the hourlies, some of the hourlies sometimes would think that you didn't like them, or it was the people for me that made the job, and that's what I miss most is the people. The cast was phenomenal, as well as the many teams that I've been on, the different management teams. So, but the cast is what makes it for me. For me, I know when I left and retired, my retirement wasn't for me. It was for the cast. And I told my GM that, when I told him I was going to separate from the company, I said, my party isn't for me. It's for the cast members. It's for them to be able to say goodbye. And I couldn't have. My cast members made me cry on my last day. Just the outpouring of love from all of them was phenomenal, and what they did, and just in my last week, some of them would pull me aside and hand me something, and I didn't want that, but they were showing their, I guess, love for me, and it made me really realize how much I'm going to miss the cast, and I do. I still keep in contact with quite a few of them, but just the day-to-day interaction with them. So I feel very fortunate to have had that in my career. I mean, I didn't become a millionaire, but I got wealth in a whole different way, So I feel very fortunate.
You got to really, millions and millions of people got to have these great experiences because of what you were doing. I mean, people from all over the world coming there and enjoying the place because of what you were doing, and I think that was always a good thing. When did you retire?
I retired in June of 2019.
Okay.
So.
And then your husband stayed for almost another year, huh?
Yeah, he retired in March of this year. After 46 years.
Wow. Quite a legacy. So I guess it's fitting that you got a legacy award. Do you still, this is one of the winding down questions, but do you have dreams that you're back working there?
I absolutely do.
We get those, yes.
I absolutely do. I'll be talking in my sleep, and my husband will I cannot believe you still dream about work. But I do. I do all the time. It's just, I'll be on a project, or we'll be on a cleanup, or, and I'm still dreaming about it. It just doesn't leave my mind. And some of it, I mean, I'm one of these people, when I dream, it's, I don't forget my dreams, and I can wake up and tell you from start to finish what I dreamed about, and, or I'll wake myself up in front of my dream, in the middle of my dream, going, I cannot believe I'm dreaming about this, So yes, I still do. And I think I will for the rest of my life.
It really, really, really gets into your consciousness. I mean, I spent 6 years with another job before I moved on to my current one. And I don't ever dream about being at that other position, but I still have dreams about being at Disneyland. And inevitably, there's some point in the dream where there's a problem because I don't have my ID, because I remember that Mike Hart took my ID before I left. And,
oh my gosh!
And so funny. In my dream, I remember that. It's like, how did I get through security? So,
oh my! Yeah, it's funny how it just stays with you. It just does. So I think it's because it was my life. That's why I still dream of it. So.
Well, I think it's just the atmosphere and all of that just kind of really gets into your head, really. So
yeah.
So you found a husband there. You made some friends. And you have all these wonderful experiences, and I'm really glad you were willing to talk with us about them. Because I thought of you as one of the pillars of the department when I was there, because you were experienced in the department, and you had your high standards, and that was, I think, part of the mix that I thought made it work. So
well, thank you.
It was good working with you.
Well, it was, like I said, the caster is what it was all about. You may not think it at the time, but it is. It truly was. So, And I miss it the most. I do miss the cast the most. So, because I always say, without the cast, we wouldn't be successful. We really wouldn't be. It takes the cast to make us successful. We're just there to guide them. So, even to this day, the cast made a difference for me, just, because without them, I would be nothing. So.
It's just funny how it all works, because I was thinking as you were talking about different things you said, and I remember when I first became a lead in was it 99, and I was always nervous when you came into my area to check the flower beds, but and I remember getting frustrated because you'd call me back over in an area that maybe I missed or a cast member in my area missed, and I always get frustrated, but then it didn't take too much longer after that that I started to really appreciate you, because at first you're new and you're scared and you're trying to a good impression, and then you're making mistakes, and now I look back at it and I think I'm glad that you were that way, and I learned a lot that I carried on after you went to DCA, that I carried on. I think it improved me as a lead too. So thank you.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, Lynn, because I hear that a lot, and I don't think of myself as being that person, but a lot of people told me that. They would say, God, you would scare me to death, and but I learned a lot from you, and I wanted to get away from that when I went over to DCA, and it still went over there with me, because people would say, "Oh, Charlene's coming, watch out, Charlene's coming," and then I would have leads tell me this, and they would say, Charlene, I would tell people, though, if you would just do your job, she can be the nicest person in the world. It's when you're not doing your job that she has to, come down on you. But I would still hear a lot of what you said, too. So, that makes me, I guess, feel good, but because at the time you don't think you're helping somebody, but that's all you're trying to do is, be a different set of eyes for them, to show them how they could do their job a little bit better. And, I think it was because that's how my management team was to me. They would point out things like that. But I realized one thing I didn't do enough of, and that was thanking people for the job that they did. And I had to get better at that. When I went over to Disney's California Adventure, I tried to get better at that, because I was always just one. The way I was raised, it was expected of you to do your job. You weren't supposed to be, oh, thanks for, keeping your area clean. That was what you were supposed to do, but it became, that's what we had to do to try to encourage the cast members. And that's one thing I didn't do enough of. And so I do really feel bad that I didn't, because I did respect the job that everybody did, but I didn't say it. I had a hard time saying it,
Well, so. I have a funny story that sticks out to my mind. So our crew, I was in New Orleans closing, and we started walking across the hub. We were almost to the gate by Plaza Inn, and you said, "It's too early," and you sent us back. And by the time we walked back over there, then turned around, it was past the time. It's funny now, but at the time I wasn't funny, but
I used to hate it when people would walk early. I hated that. I'd get so frustrated because it was like,
I get it now, but it's funny at the time. But so yeah, since then I thought, nope, we're not walking yet.
Yeah, because I remember as a lead when I was in sweeping, it was ingrained in me that you don't leave your area until your exact walk time. And so I learned from my leads before me that we would go and get everybody's time card. Now you don't have time cards, but you'd go get everybody's time card. So you wouldn't give them their time card until it was right time for them to walk. And they had to have their time card. to leave. So you would tell them to meet you at the locker, or you would give it, my thing is that I would always go out and give it to the cast members and say, thank you, I appreciate the job that you did. But so you had that little time card that kept them there. But if the lead let them go early, then guess what? Yeah, I know. I'm bad at that way. I just didn't like people leaving that early. So.
I'd have to do that with like Phantasmic cleanups. I would say, okay, do not come back to the locker until this part of the show, because it was very easy to go, well, the show's starting, I'm just going to go back to the locker. It's like, no. You come back to the locker for the cleanup at this point of the show.
Right.
Don't get back there before then.
Otherwise, there was a whole crowd of people back there.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Too many memories.
Well, it was good catching up with you. It's always fun, like I said in the beginning, to get to know the people that I worked with back then. Well, that concludes episode 293 of the Sweet Spot Podcast.
I really enjoyed that. Charlene, see, I never, Charlene was always my boss,
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't chit-chat with her about personal matters or anything like that. It was just, she was there to be my boss, and I was there to make sure she was satisfied with my work, and, and she was really one of the pillars of the department, not just because of her height, but, so I really enjoyed being able to talk with her kind of more on a person-to-person level and get those stories from her. That was great.
That's what's been really, really fun doing this show and interviewing some of we've talked to several managers that we've worked with now. And like you said, working with them, for them, whatever, it's a different experience because you don't really have that time to ask them, about, hey, when did you start working here? And what did you start doing? And those sort of things. But I have a new appreciation for these people that we have on because now we know their story. And I wish that I had known that when I was working there, because it probably would have changed the way that I saw them, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, totally.
Yeah. And I mean that in a respectful way, because I think that a lot of people just, it's easy to see, the negative sometimes if someone's telling you, you need to do this, you need to do that, and you kind of get caught up in that instead of like, this is a person just doing their job, and just like I'm supposed to be doing mine. So, yeah, it was great. It was really great talking with her, and we hope to have more.
And you're really not going to get this kind of insight into Disneyland and how it operated from any other podcast, really. In terms of the custodial perspective, which is so essential to what makes Disneyland Disneyland. So let people know that we're here. Let them know how to find us. They can find us on Laughing Place. They can find us Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Stitcher. There's just a million different ways, seemingly, to find us. Or just go to thesweepspot.com. That's just a really great way to find us.
Spotify. We're on Spotify now, too. So they have podcasts. So, yeah, there's tons of places. And if you listen to us through a format that allows you to leave a review, please do so. We'd really appreciate it. It really helps us move up in the rankings where people can see our show, and it makes us feel good. So, if it's a good review. Anyways, so no, we welcome all. So thank you so much for listening. And also, I wanted to mention the mini episodes that I've been doing have been a lot of fun, and I hope that you've been enjoying those too. I'm going to continue to do those on the off weeks that we don't have our main show. So there, like I said, there will be a Sweet Spot show, type of show, every week now. So we'll see.
Maybe eventually you can talk to the CEO to loosen up some money to add me. No.
Yeah, we don't have enough funding to. No, I do it just because I can do it real quick by myself. I literally record it, come home from work, and post it. Like
I've been enjoying them.
Oh, good.
Yeah, they're good. And I didn't have to lift a finger to make them happen either, so that's even better.
There it is. Yeah. Well, cool. Well, check those out, and thank you again for listening. And Disneyland will open soon. I have faith and hope in this. So.
When you wish upon a star, yeah, your dreams come true. Okay.
Maybe by the next show.
Let's all wish for Disneyland to reopen safely, and for everybody to get their jobs back, and everybody to have fun.
Maybe by the next recording you'll have some good news, right?
Hopefully.
Okay. Well, thanks for listening.